Welcome back. In the last lesson, we talked about what the test drive is and why it's so important. Now let's talk about how to actually execute it flawlessly. There's different types of test drives by role, but they typically fall into just one of these buckets. Either working through a problem, which is usually together with you and your team, completing a project, and that's usually independently, or coming in and presenting something. The key is to design a test drive that simulates the role as closely as possible, at least the essential parts of it. So I want you to dig deep and be creative as you start to think about designing your test drives. Ask yourself this question: if I could see this candidate do something, what would it be for me and my team to be sure about hiring them? Would it be analyzing this, or presenting that, or really crafting a solution to a problem? And one of the nice things about the test drive is you can actually build a library over time by role. So this scales really well. Once you've designed it for one position, every time you fill that position or that type of position, you can whip out and use the same test drive. So it really scales nicely. Another reason to do the test drive and think about as you execute it is to be consistent. So just as we talked about with interview questions, you want to do the same thing for each candidate in the same role. That way you're comparing apples to apples. And your pattern recognition will actually improve over time the more examples you have. You'll find that once you've done the test drive 3, 4, 5 times, you'll say, wow, he thought of that, or she came up with that idea. How come the first guy didn't think of that? And you really start to see this movie over and over, and you refine your expectations. Now, when it comes to the test drive, I'm going to suggest that you indulge the candidate and work around their availability. Remember, they've already come in and interviewed with your team, so it may need to be late afternoon or early evening. Sometimes I've even done them on the weekend. I want to try to accommodate the candidate's schedule and not make them jump through hoops. Now, people sometimes ask me, and you may be thinking this, should I pay candidates for their time? What happens if the candidate asks me for money? If absolutely necessary, then yes. It's actually a great investment to pay $500 or $1,000 to avoid the chance of making a huge hiring mistake. But I'll be honest, I've almost never been asked by a candidate, and if they do, they just kind of bring it up and then they forget about it. So I'm not looking for free labor. The goal of the test drive is not to get a free consulting gig. That's not the point. The point is to see them in action and remind the candidate that they're going to see you in action as well. So it really does work both ways. Okay, so the homework for this lesson. I want you to identify the 3 roles that you and your firm are planning to hire the most of over the next 12 months. Typically, these are positions like a sales rep or a software developer. Might be a customer service rep or an assembly line worker, something where you hire groups of them, almost classes of them. That way, these 3 first test drives are really going to scale well. So we'll start with those. So just start jotting down some ideas for each of the 3 of projects or activities or assignments that would help you assess the candidate's performance. And in the next lesson, I'm actually going to share some actual examples for actual positions. So that'll help you as well. But take a few minutes and actually jot down some thoughts. I'll see you in the next lesson.